In the shadows of American history lies a figure whose presidency is often overlooked, yet his life is a narrative of intense personal tragedy, political ambition, and the immense pressures of a nation on the brink of division. Franklin Pierce, the 14th President of the United States, is a name that seldom rings familiar in the halls of great American leaders. However, his journey to the highest office in the land and the tumultuous years he spent there paint a complex picture of a man caught between the tides of a country teetering on the edge of civil war. Born on November 23, 1804, in a small log cabin in Hillsborough, New Hampshire, Franklin Pierce came from modest beginnings. His father, Benjamin Pierce, was a Revolutionary War hero and a two-term governor of New Hampshire, instilling in young Franklin a deep sense of duty and patriotism. However, the expectations placed upon him by his father's legacy would become both a guiding star and a heavy burden throughout his life. Franklin's early years were marked by a strong academic prowess. He attended Bowdoin College in Maine, where he formed lifelong friendships with notable figures, such as Nathaniel Hawthorne and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Though not the most diligent student, Pierce's charm and charisma made him popular among his peers, foreshadowing his future in politics. After college, he pursued law, quickly rising through the ranks to establish himself as a successful lawyer in New Hampshire. Pierce's entrance into politics came at the young age of 24, when he was elected to the New Hampshire legislature. His rapid ascent continued as he became the youngest member of the U.S. House of Representatives at the age of 27, and later a U.S. Senator by 35. Pierce's political career was characterized by his staunch support for the Democratic Party and his unwavering belief in states' rights, a stance that would shape much of his presidency. Yet, while Pierce's public life seemed to be on a steady upward trajectory, his private life was marred by tragedy. In 1834, he married Jane Means Appleton, a deeply religious and introverted woman who despised politics. The couple was deeply mismatched. Jane's frail health and aversion to the public eye contrasted sharply with Franklin's outgoing nature and political ambitions. The Pierces suffered the loss of all three of their children, each death leaving a profound impact on both of them. The death of their last surviving child, Benjamin, in a train accident just weeks before Franklin's inauguration, cast a long shadow over Pierce's presidency. Jane saw the tragedy as divine punishment for her husband's pursuit of high office, a belief that haunted Franklin throughout his term. When Pierce was elected president in 1852, it was largely due to his status as a dark horse candidate, a compromise choice for a deeply divided Democratic Party. His campaign was based on his image as a war hero from the Mexican-American War and his support for the Compromise of 1850, which attempted to address the issue of slavery in the expanding United States. However, Pierce's time in office would prove to be one of the most challenging periods in American history. As president, Franklin Pierce faced the nearly impossible task of maintaining peace between the North and the South. His support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed new territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery, led to widespread violence and unrest, earning the period the grim nickname Bleeding Kansas. This decision, intended to appease both pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions, only deepened the national divide, pushing the country closer to civil war. Pierce's presidency was also marked by his foreign policy ambitions, including efforts to expand American territories through the Ostend Manifesto, which proposed the acquisition of Cuba from Spain. However, these ambitions were largely overshadowed by the domestic turmoil caused by the slavery issue. By the end of his term, Pierce had lost the support of his party and the American people, leading to his failure to secure a second nomination. After leaving the presidency, Franklin Pierce's life continued to be steeped in sorrow. His wife Jane's health deteriorated further, and she passed away in 1863, leaving Pierce to live out his final years in relative isolation. He opposed the Civil War, believing it to be a tragic and avoidable conflict, and his public statements against the war alienated him further from the American public. Franklin Pierce died on October 8, 1869, largely forgotten by a nation that had moved on from the tumultuous years of his presidency. He was buried in Concord, New Hampshire, far from the political spotlight he once sought. The story of Franklin Pierce is one of a man who, despite his best efforts, found himself overwhelmed by the forces of history. His life was a series of paradoxes. A president who loved his country deeply, but whose actions contributed to its greatest divide. A man of great charm and popularity who ended his life in isolation, and a leader whose personal tragedies mirrored the national crisis of his time. In the end, Franklin Pierce's legacy is a poignant reminder of the complexities of leadership and the heavy toll it can take on those who bear its burdens.